A lot of close games in Week 11. We're back here with the All 32 pod, Mike Giardi alongside Will Parkinson. As always, exciting week, right? I mean, obviously it didn't necessarily go well where you were yesterday or where I was yesterday for those teams, but in general, a lot of close games.
Yeah, really good. We had a couple really awesome matchups. Obviously, starting Thursday night, some really awesome matchups yesterday. A bunch of playoff teams playing playoff teams, and one of those weeks where who knows what it'll mean, in 6-8 weeks time. But if you're a Steelers fan today, if you're a Bills fan, and if you're an Eagles fan throughout the last couple of days, you won games that may have clinched you to have a home playoff game, may have gotten you closer to a 1 seed. So yeah, definitely some really interesting things. And then obviously, some other really exciting games yesterday as well.
Yeah, for sure. A reminder to you, this show brought to you by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of CLNS Network, Media Network, and Game Time. Best tickets, best prices to get you in to any event you want to see anywhere. We use them. We love them. Let's dive right into it. We're going to put our teams a little bit further, the teams we cover a little bit further in the background of today's show, because you got to start with the Bills knocking off the last remaining unbeaten team in the National Football League, the Kansas City Chiefs. This has been a great rivalry. The Bills have now won 4 straight in the regular season over the Chiefs. Unfortunately for them, they've lost the last 3 times they played in the playoffs and have been knocked out of the postseason by the Chiefs. But the Bills win 30-21. They're 9-2. Chiefs now 9-1. So before you even get into the game, big picture-wise, all of a sudden now that number 1 seed and the idea that maybe instead of having to go through KC, maybe if KC slips up once or twice more, that maybe you're going through Buffalo. We know how difficult a place that is with the environment. Be pretty amazing when you think about it if it ended up an AFC Championship game in Buffalo.
Yeah, a couple of things when it comes to that. That was my first thought as well. Like, hey, Kansas City probably doesn't go undefeated the rest of the year, and Buffalo, the way they're playing right now, like maybe they could run the table and get the 1 seed. I also looked at they got the Niners, who are going to be desperate for a win upcoming. Mm-hmm. They have the Rams after that, and then the Lions. So if the Bills somehow manage to get through those 3, and if they do, that's awesome. They'll probably be favored in 2 of the 3. The Lions game obviously probably scares you the most, but the Rams are obviously no joke. Obviously, there's no bigger fan of the Rams than me on this pod. And I just look at the Niners and say, hey, is this the make or break game for their season and whatever? But the Bills can do that. They finish with, I think, Patriots, Jets, and they finished Patriots again. Yeah, Patriots again. You would assume they probably win all 3 of those. So either way, I think if you're the Bills, they are now in position. Baltimore's dropped 2, obviously, recently, and that was a team that you felt like obviously they smoked the Bills, right?
Yeah.
But also, not for nothing, that was a team that they had to start losing games, because I think the Bills did not want to have to go back into Baltimore. The Steelers are obviously a team to watch. I don't think the Steelers are going undefeated the rest of the year. If they can at least be the 2 seed, they give themselves a shot to at least have, again, 2 playoff games at home. We know how Buffalo is at home during the playoffs, except for that one Burrow year. They've done really well. So Big win for them. I don't want to overput too much stock in this game, only from the aspect of we've talked about I believe on Friday or Thursday's pod. They beat Kansas City like every year in the regular season.
Yep.
But I felt like this one was needed because it was at home. It felt like they always were just playing in Kansas City every year. I think, if I'm not mistaken, all 3 of those games were in Kansas City. After last year in the playoffs, kind of had to regain, hey, if they come back here, we feel confident we can beat them. And also, the Chiefs, just a lot of the issues I felt like we saw, frankly, all year.
Yeah.
They'll get healthier. They'll get Pacheco back. They'll get some of these other guys back, Nick Bolton, et cetera. But, I don't know. I'm not saying they're not a good team. The Chiefs are really, really, really good. I've said this, and I will continue to say this. The way Detroit looks versus the rest of the league right now, and maybe it'll even out, and maybe Detroit will get bounced in the second round, and and the Chiefs will win like they did last year. But the Chiefs have kind of been like this team that they figured out how to win week over week, and that's really impressive. And they have the best player in the sport and probably the best coach, and they have the best defensive coordinator. Like, they have a lot of they are awesome. But Travis Kelce is never going to be every week. He's not going to be an every week guy now. And again, maybe that's changing the playoffs. D-Hop, I don't think he's really an every week guy anymore. He's a guy in spurts. It's been some stuff, but the tackles are bad in Kansas City. They just are. This defense is really good, but any defense in 2024 can be got and shoulder checking Josh Allen while he's running full speed. It's a horrible way to try and tackle him.
Right.
I guess the overall point being, to me, this almost said more about Kansas City. It was like, hey, like, we've had a lot of questions, and I don't know, you almost lose by double digits. Mahomes has at the end, it doesn't matter. It's the interception, but he's running for his life. And it's like, kind of gave you a little that 2020 vibe where it's like, they're really good, but these tackles are a problem. They're a huge problem since week one. And so credit to Buffalo. With Kansas City, I leave that game like, are you really the best team in the AFC? I'm not 100% sure. And that's a far-fetched, I guess, from maybe 24 hours ago.
So you know this well, obviously, with the Jets being in the division. Sean McDermott, who's handed over the defensive reins to Bobby Babich this year. Before it was obviously Leslie Frazier, but Sean is very involved regardless. And Sean likes to play zone. They play a lot of zone. They played a lot more man yesterday. And to me, it signaled they looked at the Chiefs and said, you don't have anybody that can beat us. And yeah, Worthy had a couple plays, but they'll take their chances with the rookie who's still trying to figure it out. Didn't know what the sideline was and screwed up a play. Would have been a big play. And get physical with him because he weighs 170 pounds Canadian, right? But so they played more man because they look at guys like Hopkins and now Kelsey, 2 catches, 8 yards in the game, by the way. And Kelsey has eaten against them the last 7 times. Like, I think the lowest yardage total was.
And a little of this after the game.
Good on you. Like, he's right. Okay, we've beaten you in the postseason.
Just because he's right didn't make it not annoying.
Right, obnoxious, and they'll remember that, which whatever leads to a great. If they get to see each other again, that just adds a little bit more fuel to the fire, and we love that. But clearly, they looked at them and said, even though we're not the best at corner, they don't have Trey White in his prime. Christian Benford's a nice player. Like they're Teron obviously is a good nickel corner, one of the better ones in the league. Doesn't come off the field because he loves the nickel. He plays the nickel a ton. That I was just struck, I guess, by how McDermott, after all these meetings, looked at this and said, "Dude, we can man them up. We can do this, and we haven't been able to do this against them." And maybe in the beginning of this run, when they had, as I mentioned, Trey White, when you had Hyde, when you had Poyer, when you had all those guys playing at their highest level. Now you're rolling out guys like Benford, young safeties. Like you don't have the same type of talent, at least not yet. Maybe those guys grow into it, but yet you're saying you don't have Rashee Rice. He's not out there. Your Hopkins is, as you mentioned, older. Kelsey's older. Like, we'll take our chances with this, and we feel like we're going to have success. And they did. The other thing I would say about this is, they got a little cold in the second half, but then Josh did to them on key situations what Patrick has been doing to them in those big moments, and obviously the 26-yard run where he goes Superman on it. It's so funny when you go into these games too, like sort of the mindset with the quarterbacks in particular. Like, Josh likes to run, but they've tried to curb the running and that design stuff. Like, especially whatever, you're playing the Cardinals in week 1. Hey, dude, we're not calling any quarterback powers. We're not doing that kind of stuff. But when they play the Chiefs, it's like, nope, it's all open. You got to run 10, 12 times. You run 10, 12 times. And obviously he runs in the biggest moment there and makes the fantastic play. Great environment. Like I said, be cool to see these two teams meet each other again in the postseason at some point. And maybe, who knows, maybe this year it's reversed and the Chiefs end up having to come into Buffalo to play the Bills. But as you mentioned, the Bills' schedule is a little dicey here the next few weeks.
I feel like, to me, this reiterated what I said preseason on the Chiefs, where once they get Pacheco back, it's kind of reestablishing. Look, like, the craziest thing, if you want to have a fun exercise, look at the Chiefs. Look at Mahomes' stats. State stats do not mean everything, obviously. Look at Mahomes and Rodgers' stats next to each other, and you'd assume like the Jets are probably having a great year and the Chiefs are totally cratering, and it's like obviously the direct opposite. I say that because Patrick has not been special. He's been special in the moments it's needed, and that's not taking anything away from him. He is the best player in the sport. He is generational. But I still think when the Chiefs are at their peak and when they're the hardest to beat, and this is what they're going to need to do, obviously they did it last year in Baltimore. They did it last year in Buffalo. they're a team that, like, if they run it 25, 30 times and just smash mouth football you and say, like, you're not going to score on our defense if you're going to be, if you're pressing, like, Spags is going to eat you alive. And I do wonder a little bit if Spags, the conspiracy theory part of it's like, did Spags kind of run a, like, not, a little bit. It's not far fetched. The Chiefs know they're going to be in the playoffs, and they know they're probably going to see Buffalo again. So I could see it. I just wonder if, like, I've said it so many times, but when this team's at its peak, it's, hey, we have a really good running game and a really good defense and amazing specials. And oh, by the way, we have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. So I want them to kind of recalibrate a little bit to see them say, hey, especially if they play a Buffalo or Baltimore, where, like, I guess Baltimore's a little different because Baltimore's obviously, we know can't cover the pass, but generally, like, if you get Mahomes in a lot of these, like, 2nd and 4s, 3rd and 3, it's like you're done. And just keeping him in 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, knowing those tackles cannot do anything, is the one spot what the Bucs did to them in the Super Bowl. And I know, it's whatever, but it's one of the only teams that's taken them down in the playoffs. So, that's to me where it's like, hey, if you can avoid that, especially if you're Kansas City against Buffalo the next time they play, potentially they'll be in much better shape.
Yeah, and to your point, their interior 3, you may have tackle problems.
Amazing.
Their interior 3 is awesome. So, yeah, if you can make the run much more dangerous than it's been looking, they've been feeding Kareem Hunt and whatnot. Like, but
we know
we're not talking about the same kind of player and the same kind of explosiveness. If
Carson Steele has been doing it for you?
No, he's definitely not. But he has an alligator, so that's cool, right? That's also stupid, by the way. Would you ever want an alligator as a pet?
Kind of just.
Yeah.
See, it feels like he watched a little too much Love Island USA.
Yeah. It's a bad job on his part. You can't be doing that. Let's go to the next game. Ravens lose to the Steelers 18-16. Steelers now 8-2, like we all predicted. No.
I thought they were Ravens win 8-9 games.
Right. Ravens now 7-4. And so you were talking about the last game and how you sort of put it more on Kansas City and, like, how you viewed Kansas City versus what you said it meant for Buffalo. I feel the same way about this game because I look at Baltimore, and yes, I was the guy who picked them to win the Super Bowl. And I was back on the bandwagon a few weeks ago when they got rolling again. And I just said, last week we were talking, like, just improve the defense by you're like a C- right now. If you can get to like a B-, even a C+ with the way the offense has been playing, you can still win it all. They're a dumb team, and I'm out.
They're a bad road team.
But I just think, like, and this has shown up for them the last few years. Even last year, they were the better team, and maybe they're a little unlucky against Kansas City, but they also did some dumb things in that game too. I don't think that this team is capable of winning, which they're going to have to, 4 games in a row in the postseason. I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think the defense is going to get there. Even though, again, they didn't let a touchdown up to Pittsburgh, but it's Pittsburgh, right? Middle of the road offense at best. But I just think they're dumb. 12 penalties yesterday, 3 turnovers. The penalty thing, it's also about, like, the post whistle stuff, because that's what Pittsburgh wanted to do to them. They wanted to muddy the game up. We want to be in your heads. We want you thinking a little bit. Patrick Queen's yapping at them. Like, they wanted all this stuff to happen. And what Baltimore should have done was put up the hand, get back to the huddle, and just go beat your man on the next play. And we're more talented than this team. And if we do that, 3rd quarter, 4th quarter, you can talk as much crap as you want because we're going to be up by 17 points in their building, and it's going to be wonderful. Instead, not that, obviously comes down late into the game, but they didn't deserve to win the game. They're just a stupid, sloppy football team, and it just happens to them too many times when you don't think it should, too many times in big moments. And I kind of thought this was a big moment for them. I think Pittsburgh's had their number. I think it's now 7 of 8 or 8 of 9.
Yeah.
Like, they wanted that game, and you could see the frustration in Lamar after the game, kind of like, what are we doing? Why does this keep happening? Well, again, credit to Pittsburgh. Their defense was outstanding yesterday, but I think a lot of this had to do with the Ravens just being a dumb football team.
Yeah, a couple of things. One, the Ravens have to start. It's not all Lamar's fault. Say it a million times, like, because I can't help that Patrick Queen made, like, one of the better plays you'll see all year, and the interception down the sideline and all that stuff. Like, I'm not Like that interception's not on Lamar, right? Now they're not all created the same. But like Tomlin kind of owns him recently, and Tomlin kind of owns Harbaugh recently, as you mentioned. Look, Russ made one of the worst throws you'll see all year. They had a 14 QBR. They ran the ball for 3 yards a carry, Pittsburgh.
Russell, by the way, sneaky been really, really bad in the red zone so far in his brief tenure as Steelers quarterback.
If I speak. But like Derrick Henry getting 13 carries.
Right.
Like what? This is like more my frustration. You mentioned being a dumb team. Like
they didn't run last year against Kansas City, right? Remember that was a big thing in the playoffs. Like, what are you doing?
So you go out, and I love Todd Monken. Like I wish the Jets could hire him as their coach. It's not going to happen. But so you go out, you get Derrick Henry. You have no problem, up 20 points, pounding the rock with Derrick Henry in the red zone. The team's already quit, and like that's cool and that's fun for stats, and we can all get excited about it. Like guys averaging 5 yards a carry on the road in a 1-score game, and you just we're good. Lamar 4 carries, like he had the one big one, but that's it. Like we don't need to run the football. We're going to throw the ball 33 times, and when Lamar's not having like, you just gotta. I don't know that they read the room sometimes. It's like, hey, Lamar's not the best player in the NFL today, and that's okay. Like he doesn't have to be that every week. He shouldn't have to be that. Hey, our defense is finally playing well for the first time, like basically all year, outside of maybe in the Buffalo game. Like, wow, our defense showed up, man. Like, we only gave up 200 yards through the air. I know it's Russell Wilson, but like, this is shocking. Right. Run the football. Like, you're turning the football over like it's a loaf of bread. So maybe give the guy who's, awesome, the football. Adafai always having a big game. Like Roquan's having his, doing his thing. Like they're 3 games back of Pittsburgh now with 7 to go, or 6 to go. I apologize. And for them, and 3-3 on the road, not great. At the Chargers, I'm going to pick the Chargers next week when we do this pod.
Well, there's a chance if they're going to, again, never mind that
they'll play each other 3 times.
Never mind. I don't think that they can win 4 in a row by playing the way that they're playing, but they're in a situation now where they can end up having to go, just say the standings remain the same and it's KC and Buffalo 1-2. They could have to go through Kansas City and Buffalo away games. They're not winning both those games. They're not doing it. It's not happening.
Yeah. So like, there's a good chance they might be 7-6 going into the Giants game. They'll smoke the Giants by 40. But then they play the Steelers again at Houston on Christmas Day, and they finish with with Pittsburgh. I'm sorry, of course, the one team in the division. They finish with Cleveland. So there's 2 wins on there of the 6 that you feel good about. They'll get to 9-10 wins for sure. And maybe they're better than that. There's a good chance they play this Pittsburgh team and Pittsburgh a 3rd time. There's a good chance if they don't do that, maybe they're at Houston, who should be a lot healthier and better come that. And they're not a good road team this year. And they're not a good road team, especially if they're not going to run the football. Credit to Pittsburgh for sure. And I'm not diminishing any of that. I still don't think I don't think that Russ can play and match up right now toe to toe with Mahomes now, unless you make them make mistakes, which maybe they could. I don't know. TJ Watt could go easily wreck the game, against those Chiefs tackles, and TJ Watt goes and has one of those 3-sack games that, he's done his whole career, and that maybe they could go beat Kansas. I don't know. What I do know is that there was a lot of Lamar MVP talk, and doesn't matter. It's just so frustrating watching yesterday, knowing that like this game, I swear this game happens every year. The second they go into Pittsburgh, it's like, oh, our brains totally go out the window.
Right.
We look sloppy.
Dumb football.
It's dumb football. And it's like, what is happening? Like, why did that just happen? So, again, I don't want to overreact too much because at the same time, I think like some of Baltimore's issues have been there all year. It just was so frustrating. All we talked about, me and you talked about on Friday, was like, can this defense give them a shot to just like, hey, if they go score 25, 26,
right,
easy. And like the defense gives them a shot. Chris Boswell is amazing yet again, and must be nice to have a kicker that makes field goals consistently. And I don't know, man. They're now a game back of the Chargers, and they play them this week, and maybe they make up that ground, but they lose there. Now they're you're really 3 back of the Chargers for the 5th spot. And you really want that 5th spot because the more you drop, the more your path gets just harder and harder. And it's like, hey, I don't know. Let's say the Ravens are the 6th seed, right? Where I had Cincinnati, I think, penciled in. I guess I was just wrong on the AFC North team in terms of Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. But so theoretically, you got to go to Pittsburgh, to Buffalo, to Kansas City to win the conference. I don't know if I see that right now with this team. And it's just disappointing because of how good of a year they've gotten out of Lamar.
Yep.
Derrick Henry's looked much better, I think, than any of us thought. But, man, there's just something doesn't feel great. It just feels – and Lamar said it after. He's like, we do dumb stuff. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you do.
You do really dumb stuff when you play against the Steelers.
I'll give you one other thing, too. Justin Tucker, 2 more misses. They should bring a kicker this week. They should have a competition. He's not the greatest of all time because Adam Vinatieri's hit more money kicks than anybody, but obviously his success rate and all the different things that he's done.
Did Travis Kelce break him?
Maybe, man.
I don't know.
I'm just saying it's crazy because he used to be a weapon for them, and now he's a detriment.
Remember the Lions game in 2021? I believe. I think it was 2021. Is
that the one where he hit the crossbar from 60,
It was the first year of Campbell. If I'm not, it was either the first or the second year of Campbell. I thought it was the first year where they were really spunky, but weren't winning games.
Weren't winning.
And Tucker nails, I think it was 66 yards or whatever it was. And it was like, dude, this is insane. You don't even have to get across midfield you get to midfield and, you're going to win the game. Yeah. And guys get old. Their kickers are like relievers. But, man.
He maintained his peak for a lot longer than most guys do. But it
seems like it might be over. And I just had that weird feeling they're gonna get into a playoff game and he's going to miss a few. And it's he can't afford to do that. And again, we just keep saying with these teams, but the problem for this, there's just different tiers of the NFL, and it's just a reality, and expectations are different. If you're Pittsburgh, I think the goal is to win a playoff game this year, right? To get Tom kind of off that, they get to round 2.
I think it's since 2016.
Yeah,
I believe.
they get to round 2 with Russ or Fields. You feel hey, I don't know if this is the guy going forward, but the core of this roster is still really good, and we feel good about going forward. Or Houston, it's hey, can we get back to maybe round 2, win a division again, and we'll keep improving? There's different expectations. But for Buffalo and Baltimore, the expectation is no one gives a crap unless you can beat Kansas City in the playoffs. And I just don't think right now Baltimore is anywhere near where they need to be.
I don't. You mentioned Baltimore Chargers. Well, you know what? If you wanted to go see that game, I have the best idea for you. Use Game Time because they are better than any other ticket agency out there. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I mentioned this in my pod the last couple of weeks. I'm working. I'm at a TV station on a Wednesday night, and then I'm oh, Celtics Warriors. Why wouldn't I want to go to Celtics Warriors? Just got on the app. Bam, boom, got myself a ticket, went to the game. Great experience, great price. And the thing about them is if you find a cheaper price somewhere else, they'll give you 110% of the cost. So that is an awesome way to stand by your brand. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account, redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Oh, it's game time.
Couple of just transactional notes while we're here. None of these are really that. Tyquan Thornton signing with the Chiefs.
The least shocking thing ever.
Least shocking thing ever. I think Connor Rogers had a good tweet on this. He was they took him 5th, 50th overall. He was the consensus sport of all the guys that cover the draft, 158.
Yeah, 1 pick before Pickens.
And Connor's I had him barely as a draftable player and whatever. David Long signing with the Lions. Alex Anzalone is going to injured reserve. Melon Fonwu is back for the Lions. That's obviously a good pickup there. And then lastly, Nico Collins is a full go tonight for the Cowboys after being out 5 weeks. If the Stroud does not look better, Bobby Slowick does not just force feed Nico Collins. Time to pack it up.
I told you, suspect, man, suspect. But some dumb owner is going to be oh,
fraud
look at the
job he's on major fraud watch.
Yes, 100%. Speaking of frauds, Well, no, we're not starting with the Jets here. Let's go,
No.
Patriots. They lose to the Rams 28-22. Patriots now 3-8. Rams keep their season alive, improve to 5-5, just a game out of the NFC West lead. So I wrote about this in the aftermath, and then I watched the game over again today just to confirm my initial thoughts. This is the defensive-minded head coach in Giardi Maye with his hand-picked guy as the defensive coordinator, DeMarcus Covington. This plan sucked. They were in man. I think Andrew Callahan of the Boston Herald just tweeted this a short time ago. 16 of the 27 dropbacks for Stafford, and yet Christian Gonzalez, who's been one of the best cover corners in the league this year, only had Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua on 7 of those dropbacks. Most of the game, he was the boundary corner. After 2 possessions, Sean McVay, who's done this for a while and has had some good success, especially with offense, was like, they're keeping him on the boundary like they did against Chicago. Well, you know what we'll do? We'll motion away from him. We'll keep tight ends over there. We'll keep Tutu Atwell over there. We'll keep Demarcus Robinson over there. And we will just feed Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Nacua was tremendous in the first half. 6 catches, I think, for over 100 yards in the first half. The touchdown catch, he landed on the ball. He actually, according to McVay, threw up afterwards. That's how badly he knocked the wind out of himself or hurt something in there. He wasn't sort of the same player in the second half. And I feel like that had something to do one with the other. But then Cooper Kupp, 2 touchdowns, including the 69-yarder on the cover 0 blitz to start the third quarter. Like, it was a close game. Drake Maye showed a lot of life. The offense has looked better in this game. I thought it was the best offensive performance they've had in I don't even know how long. It was certainly the best offensive performance they've had with Maye at quarterback, and they've had some good moments. But their defense continues to let them down. And what does that say about the head coach? That's where he came from. Like, if he's not doing that, and if he's not helping with that, what's he bringing to the table? I just thoroughly disappointed because I think there were opportunities, like there have been a couple times this year, to win football games, and the check mark on the coaching, it went check on the other side, minus on your side.
Couple of things with this game. Matt Stafford was unbelievable.
Yep.
Again, his stats on the year are not special for Stafford, but like he needed a 4 touchdown, 0 pick game pretty badly. The Rams needed this game. We talked about, this is the type of loss. The Patriots have had a couple of these this year where there's something to build on. Like I thought the Titans won as well, where it's like, hey, Drake Maye had a game-winning, game-tying situation. You hit, right? Like that's check. Seattle game, like be really competitive and respond and, check and whatever. Drake Maye was really good yesterday. I think that's all in the grand scheme of things. That's the thing that matters most. But I also feel like the offense was more balanced yesterday. I still feel like having Drake Maye 40 attempts feels a little bit like, geez, man.
Well, because they were chasing all game, which again contradicts the coach who said he never felt like he felt like they were in control of the game.
Yeah, which
you were losing by 2 touchdowns for a majority of the. It's
like sure. The Cooper Kupp thing, like Cooper Kupp against man.
By the way, Stafford running down the field with the 0 sign. I knew what you're trying to do to me, and that was a mistake.
But yeah, look, I think you mentioned it there, and I think you're right. Like the coaching for the Patriots is just so odd to me because it's like these guys play really hard every week, it feels like, and they do come prepared to play, and especially since Drake Maye's taken over, like you've seen a pretty big jump, I think, in like the competitiveness. The Jacksonville game aside, I almost feel like that game, in hindsight, is ridiculous the way it unfolded. But the rest of the year, they have been really, like, I feel like they've played really hard. But like they still just do really dumb stuff. And I still think back to the Jets game at the end of the half where it's like what was that?
Right.
And they've adjusted at times, but I don't know where the cohesion is in terms of like what Mayo wants versus what this defense is versus what this offense is. And it kind of feels like there's just from the outside looking in, it's like, what's the plan here? Like each week, it kind of feels like, well, I don't know what you're going to get on this defense. And then the offensive side of the ball, it's like, hey, we want to be a run first offense that's going to like control the clock and we'll let our rookie develop. And it's like, actually, we're going to let him throw the amount of time. Like we're going to let him put up Peyton Manning level attempts back there. And we're going to run the football some, but even though we just paid Ramondre, whatever. I guess the overall point is like it's a competitive loss for the Patriots. It's certainly something you can build on. Drake gets another opportunity to go down there and obviously win the game. They did not, but obviously stats wise, I think probably his best game of the year. And that's really nice to see. Something's just like frustrating about, I feel like you have seen a drop off defensively. I feel like from a scheme perspective, and again, it's to be expected when you lose Belichick and what he was, he's a genius, but it is a little weird where it's like, hey man, like, I don't know, just like playing that amount of not adjusting and then being stubborn with that. And then your adjustment being like playing man against Matt Stafford and like Cooper Kupp and Puka is just, I don't know. It's not a winning. That's not how you're not going to beat the Rams like that. Like you're not playing.
The adjusting thing is what gets me. Cause like, look, they have more information than we do. They got trends. They got charts. They have all this stuff. Hey, whatever. We noticed the left guard's left hand. So like they know things that we don't know.
Yeah.
So you go into it, and I even tweeted about it. The players felt going into the game that they had a good defensive plan. Okay, fine. But after McVay figured out what you were doing and he adjusted to you, you never adjusted to him. You always have to have the counterpunch to the counterpunch because that's how the game works. The league works that way. It not only big picture, but in the little moments like that during the course of the game. And they were just like, no, they were content. He used the word, I thought we could outlast them. What does that even mean? Like, just adjust. And I'll give you this. The other side of the ball, I thought that was Alex Van Pelt's best job. They had a plan for Jared Verse. 2 weeks ago, they got chewed up by Jeffrey Simmons.
Brain fist, though.
They had no plan for him. This one, they came in and they said, all right, we're going to double him. We're going to chip him. We're going to and they threw at him. They ran a tight end screen for 19 yards right behind him. They ran another screen with Ramondre in the fourth quarter. They gained 7 or 8 yards. They threw the touchdown pass to Vidarian Lowe, the tackle. That was versus cool. Right across from him. Didn't know. So, like, they had an idea of what they wanted to do. They made sure, knowing that front is really good and your line is not very good. I think 33 of the 40 dropbacks, the attempts were either behind the line of scrimmage or between 0 and 9 yards. It's a good plan, man. It was a lot of like not him running around and making a play. It was like, no, that was designed. Like, oh, Verse beat the left tackle. The ball's already out. Oh, Fist beat the left guard. Ball's already out. By design, the ball was out. It wasn't, most of these times it wasn't, oh crap, I got to get rid of it because I'm about to get decked. It was, no, that was the play. Boom, boom, ball's out. Done. Frustrate the rush. So they did a lot of good things yesterday. But it would be nice to not turn the ball over to end the game. He and Pop Douglas not on the same page. Pop not even looking for the ball. I didn't think it was a great throw. I'm not sure Pop did the right thing. No one wanted to throw the other one on the bus. Maye sort of took the responsibility himself, saying we just have to talk more about it. Miscommunication. But I guess, again, part of dealing with a young quarterback without a ton of experience who's prone to make mistakes. I think that's now 10 turnovers for me, 2 in the game. The forced fumble, a strip sack there from Fisk, which, by the way, I think was the fastest sack in the league in terms of how quickly he got there. Because, oh, by the way, Michael Jordan and Ben Brown, the center, left guard, once again couldn't pick up a stunt, miscommunicated. That's been going on for like a month now. But sure, just keep doing that. Anyway, that's it. We don't need to spend any more time on it. Good for the Rams. Good win. Keeps them alive. Patriots, yeah, like you said, some things to build off of, but they continue to be a befuddling team in critical moments. Then there's the Jets. Now, I'd like to say that as a good friend of yours, that I told you we weren't going to talk about the path anymore because there wasn't a path. And the Colts beat the Jets 28-27. This season is beyond anything. I think I had them winning 13 games, maybe. Like I really thought, because the way I felt about the defense and just get competent, solid play from Rodgers, that they would take off. it's gone the other way. As I'm looking at sort of my notes, I guess the one thing I wanted to ask you, and continue to sort of talk about this at the 40-year-old quarterback, he didn't hit over 100 yards passing until the third quarter. Is he holding them back? Is Aaron Rodgers holding the Jets back? And I don't even say like, look, there's a lot of things that have gone wrong. So I'm not even talking about from being like a Super Bowl team, but like from being a winning team, maybe.
So a couple of things in this game. I just want to start quickly, and I want to get to your question because I have a longer answer for that. I thought Anthony Richardson bounced back in a really nice way. I think he's a guy who showed, a lot of ability. He made some really nice throws. He still makes some really inaccurate throws, and it's still his pocket presence is horrendous, and a lot of things that need to be worked on for sure. But
Right.
you see the natural talent, and the whole shot to Pierce on the game-winning drive. A couple of the QB powers were really impressive, and different things like that. He's really hard to tackle, and the arm is alive. He didn't do a good job of actually throwing the ball. Like Josh Downs had a choice route that on that final drive too. We were like, oh, that was a really nice that was a nice timing throw, like an NFL throw. He had some ones, the 2-point conversion where it's like, dude, I could have thrown that, and it's like and he knew it too. He literally sprinted the length of the field, like holding his head because he was frustrated. And the Colts keep themselves alive. I think they're not a really well coached team on the defensive side of the ball.
No.
Offensively,
Gus
I think
Bradley.
they do. Gus Bradley, man, they do some nice things on offense, and I think another year maybe with Steichen and Richardson and adding some more talent. The offensive line was banged up yesterday. That's what I say about the Colts. I think their season is also treading in the wrong direction, but it was a nice win yesterday. They have one of the best kickers, by the way, in the NFL. They literally on 3rd and 9 from the 40 ran it up the middle because they were like, nah, he'll hit a 58-yarder. Boomed it right in. From the Jets' point of view, to answer your question about Rodgers, I'm trying to think how I can phrase it. Do I think he's holding them back down by down? There's a good argument to be made. And the reason is that he just right now, I honestly don't know what Rodgers are going to get drive by drive. It's so weird. The first half, he could not have looked worse. It was like, oh my God, it's over. Like I can't believe it's honestly sad. It was like actually really sad to watch. I was like, this, like, is he done? Like, he's one of the best 3 quarterbacks I've ever seen in my lifetime. And it's like, this is crazy. Like 8 weeks ago, served for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, looking at the peak Rodgers.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I don't know. That sounded like cheesy, but it was kind of like hard to watch. And then he did a decent job. He had a little happy feet in the pocket, but gets Brees the dump off, and he goes and scores. And you're like, all right, let's see what happens. And then there was like a period there where you're like, all right, like he's actually moving around a little bit, and he broke the pocket a few times, had a really nice throw on 3rd and 14, and you're like, oh, that's classic Rodgers. He pulled a run play, hit Devontae for a big gainer, and because Devontae had a gimme route, there was no one, there was no guy, there was no overhang again over him, and I was like, oh, that was like cool, but he doesn't want to get hit, and again, I'm not blaming him at all, but part of why Rodgers was so great was his ability to move within the pocket, to buy time. The play would break down, and there was nobody we've ever seen better in the NFL at, like, you give him an inch and you take a mile. Guys running deep down the field, him taking these 60-yard bombs. The arm strength is there. Like, we've seen it. It's not like it's not there. He just refuses. He had a play. The Jets ran it was very early in the game. This encapsulates what's going on with the Jets right now. A two-man route. Ruckert was the 3rd guy, and long developing play action to get Devontae and Garrett down the field. They're both open. And even if they weren't open, it was a 50-50 ball. You throw to your guy. He dumps it off to Ruckert, who's their backup tight end, who ends up dropping, and it almost was a fumble 6. It's like, dude, throw the ball. Like, what are you doing? And so, yeah, I guess yesterday I thought he held them back very much in the first half. The second half, I think he was fine. I just don't know. Like, it's so hard to tell sometimes when you watch the Jets right now, where it's like, I don't know none of us know what the play call is, right? And, even if you ask people, it's like, I wasn't in the huddle when it got called. But the offense is static. He doesn't move a ton. And it's just, I don't know. It's just so frustrating because, again, I'm not trying to, like, cover for the guy, but at the same time, it's like you see these flashes and you're like, oh, it's still there. Like, why can't you do this play down by down? And I don't know if he's frustrated with how his body isn't doing exactly what he wants all the time, and it's like he can't adjust. I don't know if it's protecting the interception and completion percentage. Like the body language stuff sucks, and it's and I don't ever really care about that stuff. I think body language is overrated, but I also think that when you're losing and you're the quarterback, like at some point you gotta have to kind of like, dude, you gotta like not get angry every 2 seconds. Like he lit up Braylon Allen on a play where I get it. Braylon Allen could have got called for a false start. He actually wasn't the guy who got called for the penalty. And it's like, light up the offensive lineman, but you don't want to, I don't know. It's a mess right now. If you asked me 4 days ago, he was going to come back. They were going to draft a guy and he'll be kind of the bridge guy. Now I don't know. And it sucks. I don't know. It's a long way of saying like, he probably is holding them back on a down by down basis, but I don't know that there's a better answer. And like, I hear all the Tyrod, just phantom injury Rodgers, have Tyrod go out there. Like, sure, but if you phantom injury Rodgers and then Tyrod does what unfortunately Tyrod's done throughout his career and get hurt immediately, now you're screwed. It's just a disaster, and you're playing Adrian Martinez. Like, I don't. That's not a real solution. So, I hope that Rodgers takes these 2 weeks for the bye and basically is like, dude, I don't know if this is your last 6 games you ever play in the NFL. I don't know if you're going to go somewhere else next year. You'll be back. I have no idea what'll happen. There's so many variables. Can you just kind of try to have fun? See, there's no pressure anymore. It's over. Go try to have fun for 6 weeks and like let it rip. Who gives a crap? You're still going to hold the all-time ratio. You're about to hit 500 touchdowns. Like, just go let it rip, and who cares? It's like he does it once in a while, but he doesn't do it consistently, and it's more that Garrett and Devontae are open. They're open all the time. And it's like, Conklin's open all the time. Just throw the ball. Breece Hall, this is the craziest quote. And Connor Rogers and Joe Caparoso on the other pod I do brought this up. And I didn't hear it because I was in the stadium. Jason McCourty brought up on the broadcast, the Jets don't design pass plays for Breece Hall. He's not ever the number one read. Why? Like, that it's a comedy of mistakes, and they've found different ways to lose. I think 5 of the 7 losses this year, or 6 of the 8 losses, are by a combined 14 points. And Bill Belichick, the wise words, and I'll shut up after this. The wise words of Bill Belichick, the NFL is about not losing games. It's not usually about winning them. Yep. And it's why the Patriots are so good for so long. The Jets have all year, the Patriots game, Patriots fans will remember, the Broncos game, the Vikings game, the Bills game, like missed kicks, stupid penalties, missed throws, and then the encapsulation. Rodgers, after not targeting Tyler Conklin the whole game, not sure why, but doesn't target him, and decides, this is a guy, by the way, who's played for 20 years in the NFL. One of arguably the smartest football player we've ever seen from a football cerebral point of view. We're not doing politics thing. Flicks the ball sideways and it doesn't go forward enough. It's a dumb play. The idea is not dumb, but the execution was so stupid. The game was over. 48 seconds to go 25 yards. Like, they could do it. Like, I don't think that's insane. And he checks it down once, takes a sack, and fumbles. And it was like, what? The drive before you were running around throwing 3rd and 15 darts on a comeback route. And now all of a sudden your brain broke. What? I don't know. That's a long way of answering, but like, it's the frustration and just the stupidity of some of these mistakes. It's like you're just not used to it with Rodgers. Like, that's what's so frustrating. I think we saw it at the end with Peyton and some of these guys too, where it's like, what are you doing?
Right.
I don't know. It's very odd.
I'll say it. You guys would be better off with a new quarterback next year. And I know that that's scary because who knows what that quarterback is, but it just feels like this didn't work. And it was worth the shot, the try.
Oh, it was 100% worth it.
Especially when you consider what the Jets quarterback situation was and has been. But you
just wonder.
Torn Achilles.
You wonder, like, what would have happened? That team was way more flawed last year, offensive line wise. But you just wonder, like, was that the shot? Was last year really the year? And Rodgers, without the Achilles injury, like, he's obviously a year older out of football. The game sometimes slows down for you, and you slow down and the game speeds up. And we've all been there, like, coming back from injuries and stuff. And you just wonder, was that the year? And when that happened, did it really die? that night, and then this year was kind of like this year was what next year probably would have looked like, and maybe they got it a year early. Maybe that'll be better for the franchise long term. But anyone that tells you coaching doesn't matter in this league, look no further than the LA Chargers. I don't want to hear that excuse. The Chargers have a worse team on paper than they did last year, and have the number one defense, and Justin Herbert looks like a top 4 quarterback comfortably. He's had 1 interception on the year, Mike. 14-1, man. It's pretty
crazy
impressive.
Numbers. Before we get to that game, just a reminder, Prize Picks, best place to get real money sports action. Over 10 million members, billions of dollars in award winnings. Prize Picks makes daily fantasy sports accessible to you. You just more or less on 2 up to 6 players, and you can win up to 100 times your cash. CLNS with a great offer as well. You download the app today, use the code CLNS to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today, use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, you don't have to win the 5, you still get the 50. Prize Picks, run your game. We'll do our picks as we always do at the end of the week. Try to win you some money. You mentioned the last game we wanted to get to, and I was so tired last night, and I couldn't go to bed. Could not go to bed because it was Justin Herbert versus Joe Burrow. Burrow started dealing in the second half. Herbert was dealing in the first half. Then obviously the late game situations. Chargers end up winning the football game. They improved to 7-3. Bengals fall to 4-7. You mentioned the Chargers. Quickly, though, is it over for the Bengals?
Nope.
Because of the AFC, right?
The AFC is, that's why, like, people give me a hard time. Like, that's why until this week, it wasn't over for the Jets, because you're like, dude, if any one of these teams gets hot for literally a month, they're going to make it. And the Bengals are really bad on defense. Their offensive line, don't get me started with play for one each other. Meanwhile, it's like, dude, people are just eviscerating Burrow, and you guys are doing nothing about it.
Right.
But all that said, they're a game back. They're two games back, but they're 2 games back at Denver. And as good as Denver looks, I don't know.
I don't love Denver.
They play Denver at the end of the year in Cincinnati, and if they're a game apart, but at the same time, as good as Burrow is right now, he's playing unbelievable football. Jamar Chase is amazing. T. Higgins is fantastic. The coaching staff of the Bengals is really good. It's like they just can't figure it out. It's, and
we've talked about this though. You have years like this, and usually it reverses themselves, right? So and we talk about this all the time because I think it's a little overrated, but the 1-score game, because most of these games are 1-score games in the NFL, but they're on the wrong side of all these 1-score games this year. And yesterday, and I don't want to hear the Burrow, like, there's some weird people out there that think like Burrow's not clutch. Oh, they don't, he doesn't have a ton of 4th quarter comebacks. Dude took him down the field. They had 2 field goals that McPherson misses, right? Like, McPherson?
Yeah.
That didn't sound right for a second. Which, by the way, and I can't stand kickers. It just drives me nuts that they're that prominently involved. But like, he's doing what he can. He's playing an awesome football right now. Like if they were 7-4 instead of 4-7, we might be talking about him as the MVP.
Unanimous MVP.
Right. Like he's doing ridiculous things right now and has been for 6-7 weeks. But their talent erosion on defense has really limited them. And the guys that they invested in on defense with some second round picks Miles Murray, these guys haven't done what they were projected to do. So they're just Dax Hill. They just haven't got enough out of those players. And so what they were a few years ago when Anarumo should have got a head coaching job versus what they are now is like they're playing guessing games. They had to bench Cameron Taylor-Britt, who's had a really tough year. And like, finally they're just like, we can't do it anymore. Josh Newton comes in, like they're spinning the dial at really important positions because they're just not getting the play that they expected out of players that they drafted highly and have sort of built around.
Yeah, look, it's like it sometimes this happens. Like I don't know. I know it's not a one-on-one example, but like look at Minnesota, the year that 3 years ago, they win like every one-score game. It feels like everything is going right. The next year, nothing seems to be going right. This year, everything is going right. It's like this is what happens in the NFL, and sometimes, and it's kind of hard to explain with the Bengals. You just think back to Week 1. It's like that's an encapsulation of their season. Like, how did you lose that game?
Right.
How did you lose the Washington game? You didn't punt.
Right.
You know, it's like, it's you look back to both Baltimore games. Like, how does this happen? Jamar Chase is going to be even more expensive in the offseason now. Great job not getting that one done. Good job there. And you look at the Chargers where it's the opposite, where it's like, hey, they're doing the little things they need to do right. Had some Chargery moments yesterday when they were up, I think 24-6, whatever it was. I was like, ooh.
27-6.
27-6, and it was like 27-20, I believe. You're like, ooh, what's happening? What's going on here? But you watch guys like Herbert and, use his legs and obviously doesn't turn the football over at all. This defense is so sound. Jesse Minter, I've talked about it a million times. I'll continue to push that. Is like, he's really good at his job, and he's got them playing no Khalil Mack last night. And like, there's not like name me 5 guys in the Chargers defense if you don't watch the Chargers or cover the NFL. Like, it's probably pretty hard to do.
Yep.
And they're the number 1 defense in the league. And Burrow throwing it 50 times is not ideal. Obviously, as much good as he is, we know it's just like they're a one-trick pony, and some weeks it could work and some weeks it doesn't. I just look at the Chargers and I'm like, hey, you're gonna have the coach of the year, probably the assistant of the year, and Herbert's gonna be a Pro Bowler, and like, you're gonna have a lot more cap space and draft picks coming up. You're in a really good spot to be good.
Well, let me ask you then. The conversation about them is starting to change, right? They've won 4 in a row now to go from 3-3 to 7-3. Are they? I shouldn't say would they be a team that scares you in the playoffs, because they've got pieces. Obviously, you think that team can win a playoff game?
I do because I feel like in a big game right now, would you trust? We're
Chargers? Talking about 6 or 7 seed, though, right? I mean, that's so you're
so right now. That's right. But right now, technically, they're the 5. I believe,
5,
right? They're the 5 now, so they'd be playing theoretically if the playoffs start today at Houston. I kind of think I like the Chargers in that game. The way Houston's playing, things could change, and Baltimore maybe right. If they're the 6, they're playing an AFC North team. I think this all comes down to, for me, can the Chargers be healthy going into the playoffs? Because the coaching, I think they're going to have an advantage even in the AFC, pretty much in, I don't know, if the Chargers are playing the Bills. Like, I like the Chargers staff better. Like, I just do. I don't, we've seen this too many times. And even if they're a playoff team this year, knowing, hey, like, they're a year at least ahead of schedule. And Harbaugh usually in year 2 and 3 is when it starts to like get really freaking impressive. That's kind of, I feel like I think I had them as the 7th seed going into the year because I was like just outwardly really high on them. I didn't expect them to be this good. I thought they were going to be like a spunky like 9-8 team. This team might win like 11 games. It's like, I don't know. I want to see what they look like against the Chiefs, because I think the Bengals are one level of competition. You look at. They got a couple of games coming up here. They got to stretch really the next 5 of the last 7 for them. They're 7-3 now. Home against Baltimore, huge game, and their chance of winning a playoff game increase quite a bit if they win that game.
Yep.
At Atlanta, and get another big game. Then at KC on Sunday Night Football in a couple of weeks. They could go 1-2, even 2-1 there. You finish with Tampa at home, Denver at home, at New England, at Vegas. You like yourself at least in 3. That's 11 wins. Again, I don't know if this team is a better sum of its parts with a really good quarterback and good coach, but we've seen teams go on runs like that where it's like, hey, I don't know. I don't know where I land with them. I just think they're a really good team, and I don't think anyone wants to play them. They're just tough as nails right now, so it's tough.
I think they are short 2 receivers, not just 1.
Short like 6.
Yeah, right. So I think this will be an interesting one when they play Kansas City, because Kansas City can cover. Are you able to scheme up McConkey and get your deep shot to Johnson or whatever and have him make the catch, Palmer, those sorts of things?
Not that it matters now, but like they should sign T. Higgins, right?
Oh, they should totally be in on T. Higgins.
75 mil.
Well, I know there's a team in my backyard that will certainly be in that conversation, as they've been searching high and low for a number one. I don't even know if T is a number one, by the way. He's good. He's really good. But it helps when Jamar's on the other side. Yeah, they'll be in. He's going to get paid. Good for him, right? I mean, it's hitting the market at the right time when everybody's paying wide receivers big money. All right, that's going to put a wrap on this one. Quick shout out to the Lions, who just absolutely curb stomped the freaking Jaguars into submission. That team is just a train wreck. Could be Bill Belichick's next stop. Who knows? He is Will Parkinson. I'm Mike Giardi. Reminder to like, listen, subscribe, tell your friends, leave a review, do all those good things for us. We appreciate you here on the All 32. We'll see you at the end of the week to get you ready for Week 12.